Good morning and welcome to our next Security Middle East webinar. Thank you for joining us today. We have a fantastic opportunity to introduce Trulifi, a new range of LiFi systems, which is essentially enabling great quality and reliable fast internet connections. And we've seen some stats recently in the media that suggest that by 2022, more than 60 billion devices will connect to the internet, mostly wirelessly. And this places wireless communication under increasing pressure. Therefore, Trulifi by Signify could be the perfect solution. It's a range of LiFi systems providing two-way wireless communications that's reliable, secure, and fast. We have a stellar panel today, and it's my pleasure to introduce the three of them now. So firstly, we have Olav Scholte, who is working at Signify and is the commercial leader across the agriculture and growth platform. In 2008, he started working on the introduction of LED technology in Philips lighting fixtures, and now he's moved over into the Middle Eastern market, bringing that knowledge and expertise towards developing innovations in the Middle Eastern market. He looks after the agriculture business as well as the market development for LiFi technology. Our second speaker is Muhammad Hassan, who is one of the regional sales managers for LiFi systems at Signify. He has a wealth of experience in business-to-business sales, as well as new business development in diversified industries, including optical wireless communications and IoT-based connected LiFi systems. And finally, Lewis Kenney is a director and founder of Hawkesmore, which is a leading defense and security expert with over 12 years experience shaping development of Middle East defense and security sectors. Before we begin, I'd just like to say that if you have any questions, please do type them into the questions panel, and I will endeavour to ask the panelists the questions at the end of their presentation. We have around 40 to 45 minutes of presentations today and around 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor over to our first speaker, Olav. So Olav, over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. I'll just start sharing my screen to go to the presentation. Today we want to talk about wireless broadband connections by means of light waves and how they can help in secure communication structures. First, a bit about ourselves. Signify is the world leader in lighting. We are better known maybe under our previous name, Philips Lighting. Since a couple of years, we're an independent company, and we are the world leader in light sources, luminaires, and systems and services. We're doing about 6.5 billion euros of turnover yearly, of which about 75% goes into professional applications. We do that with a team of 32,000 people in 74 countries. And one of the strategic pillars that we work on is sustainability. And as such, we're also recognized as being the sustainability leader in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. And since last year, we're also running 100% carbon neutral on our operations. Signify is now our corporate name, but we work with a number of brands. The most famous one is obviously Philips, but we also have a number of other brands, and one of the latest ones is Trulifi. That is about the topic of today. That's our brand for the LiFi proposition, and I would like to tell you a little bit as an introduction on what is LiFi. You could consider it as Morse code 4.0. It's a means to transmit data, but we're not using the radio spectrum, but the light spectrum instead. Maybe you remember these lamps that you have on the boat, on a ship, that you can quickly switch on and off to transmit a Morse code. And basically that's what we're doing, but then at a much faster data rate. So we can actually do wide bandwidth communications with it. Data needs to be secure, and with LiFi we have specific possibilities to secure data communication. We're using lighting to transmit data, and we do that nowadays with infrared light. We started out with white light that we use the lighting fixtures for, but sometimes the lighting fixtures are dimmed or off, and then it's not possible to communicate. So we instead started using infrared spectrum to transmit the data. And on top of that, it gives us the possibility to transfer the data in a much faster rate. We connect a USB key to our device, a laptop or a computer, and then we can receive and send data to a transceiver that can be installed either standalone in the ceiling, for example, or integrated into the lighting fixtures. And unlike other LiFi systems, it works whether the room lights are on or dimmed or off, like I said, by using the infrared spectrum. Now, Hassan, maybe you can explain us a little bit about the benefits of LiFi.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Olav. And actually, the first benefit for LiFi is security. It's very focused connectivity. You need to be in the line of sight with the LiFi transmitter to receive the signal. And as light doesn't penetrate walls or objects, so the wireless communication will be contained inside the room or the area where we install LiFi. So on the physical layer, LiFi is a very secure wireless communication. You need to be physically in the line of sight with the light source, having the right access key to get access to the network. And even to make it more secure, we have incorporated encryption between the LiFi transmitter and the LiFi receiver. So you don't need only to be physically inside the room, you also need to have the right encryption key or the right password to get access to the network. Second benefit of LiFi is the reliability. As the bandwidth of light is ample, theoretically it's 1,000 times the radio spectrum, so the capacity to accommodate more users and more devices is enormous compared to Wi-Fi. And you can think when you are in a very crowded location, like an airport or stadium, for instance, trying to connect to a Wi-Fi. Sometimes it's not an easy experience. You have thousands of devices around you competing for the same bandwidth, so it ends up with a limited and unreliable wireless communication. In that sense, LiFi can offload the Wi-Fi in the very congested and crowded locations. And given the fact that light doesn't interfere with other radio signals, so LiFi provide a very stable and reliable wireless communication. Also, it's a very fast communication because we communicate via light. Nothing is faster than the light. Theoretically, in our labs, we can reach speeds up to 50 gigabit per second. And commercially speaking, right now, we have a product reach up to 1 gigabit per second. So it's a very fast communication or fast wireless data communication. Also, fast is not only about the speed, it's also about the latency. And the latency is the delay between sending the data from point A to point B. And LiFi has the lowest latency compared to any RF-based communication. We are talking about 1 to 2 milliseconds compared to Wi-Fi, which is 20-25 milliseconds. So LiFi is perfect for real-time application. You can think of integration into augmented reality and virtual reality glasses to have a seamless experience. Having said that, it's very important to mention that we don't position LiFi as a competitor to Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a great technology, we all use it, but like any other technology, it has certain drawbacks or limitation in some application or some use cases. And here where LiFi can fill in and complement the whole picture. And here we cover the areas where LiFi can play a role, and it's mainly around 4 categories. First one, when physical security is preferred. And here we are talking about entities which deal with classified information or with high sensitive information. And simply they can't afford the risk to have this confidential information in the air by Wi-Fi or any other RF-based communication with the vulnerability that anybody can hack the signal or at least listen to it or jam it. So we mainly target here military, defense, and the governmental entities. Second area where radio is prohibited. And not always radio is prohibited because of the security aspect. Sometimes it's prohibited because it can cause some hazards effect, like the case for oil and gas facilities, for power plant and nuclear plant, for example, because there is a risk of explosion due to the interference with the RF-based communication. And hence, LiFi can provide a very safe wireless communication via the line. Also, we see a global trend to stop Wi-Fi in primary schools. There is a many government regulation in Europe around that because they believe RF might have some impact on the health of the young people. So they are looking into LiFi as a more sustainable and clean way of wireless communication. The next area where LiFi can really play a role is where radio doesn't work well. And here we mainly target two segments: digital industry or industry 4.0 in manufacturing facilities and warehouses. And we all know with digitalization and industrial Internet of Things, there is a growing demand for connectivity more than ever. And in most cases, it's preferably wireless connectivity. And radio communication in general has a lot of challenges within those environments. First of all, you can think of the interference with the equipment, with the harmonics generated from different machines, some process like the weldings. All of that make the Wi-Fi or the radio-based communication has a lot of limitation. Also, the massive steel structure within those facilities work as a Faraday cage, which cause a lot of attenuation to the signal. In that sense, LiFi can be a great solution where wireless connectivity is needed and radio is not an option. And here we have many applications in Industry 4.0, like connected machine and connected maintenance. The second application where radio doesn't work well and LiFi can be beneficial in the aerospace. LiFi is not affected by the airplane's movement. It doesn't interfere with the sensitive equipment like the navigation or the GPS systems. So LiFi can enable a superior onboard connectivity experience in terms of bandwidth, latency, and stability as well. And here we can use LiFi to provide not only high-speed connection, but also real-time video systems and 4K gaming experience between the passengers. Another advantage of the LiFi when we use it on the airplanes, it results in less cabling because we upgraded the infrastructure into a low-weight fiber cable. So these reflect on the airplane weights, reducing the fuel usage, and eventually it helps the airline to meet their sustainability goals. Then the next area where LiFi can play a role when ultra performance is required. You can think of office spaces, hospitality areas, multi-tenant buildings, where there is more demands and high expectation on the wireless connectivity. Then LiFi can provide stable and fast communication for uninterrupted productivity and for improving the guest experience as well. Yeah, in this slide, we are going to have an idea of the solution we offer. This is a very high-level overview over the Trulifi product family. We mainly have two platforms, 6002 on the left-hand side, and this is the point-to-point system or the point-to-multi-point system. And it's mainly used for indoor application. And here we can have the LiFi communication either integrated into a lighting infrastructure, integrated into a Philips luminaire. So on top of having state-of-the-art lighting, you can have wireless communication as well. Or LiFi can be installed as a standalone solution, decoupled from the lighting fixture. So if you are satisfied with the lighting you have in your building, in your environment, and you still need to deploy the LiFi, you can install it as a standalone solution. With this solution, we can cover locations from small areas up to complete floor and buildings of thousands of meters square. We have the handover features, so any user can move freely and have a seamless communication between all the lighting points. Also, we can provide a full integration into the IT infrastructure. We support remote network management and control. So from a central dashboard, you can fully monitor and manage the LiFi infrastructure. The second platform we have is the point-to-point communication. So first one is point-to-multipoint. Second one is point-to-point, and in which we can establish a LiFi network between two endpoints wirelessly up to 20-meter distance. and here we can reach speeds up to 1 gigabit per second. It also supports the network management and control, and it's widely used in digital industries and the defense segments, as we are going to discuss later on. Now we have a general overview of the LiFi technology and what is the application and the use cases. We are going to dig deep in the application where security is paramount, mainly for defense, military, and government. And before we explain the different use cases, I'd like to hand over to Lewis to explain the cooperation with Hawkesmore and the general trends in the region as well.
Thank you, Hassan, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I hope you're all well. As a brief introduction, Hawkesmore is we're a boutique advisory firm based in the Middle East. We are a group of defense and security experts, and we've been working across the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others to help government, military, and industrial clients to expand the defense and security ecosystem. One of the areas that we focus on is partnering with leading technology providers such as Signify to bring new advanced technologies into the Middle East region, forming partnerships, sourcing funding, and expanding on those capabilities and tailoring them to the needs of the nation. We'll talk a bit later on about some of the specifics, but what we can definitely see in the region from both a defense and security perspective is as the region opens up to the international community, whether it be through events, whether it be through tourism, the threats will continue to grow. We're already seeing several examples of threats and challenges. I'm sure you've all seen the news of things in Saudi Arabia that is requiring the Middle East to become ever more cognizant and ever more capable of managing and dealing with those threats, not just the physical, but also the communications. So anywhere that we can expand and develop stronger and more effective and secure communications is an area of great interest to the Middle East. And we firmly believe that true LiFi, for the reasons that Hassan has already talked about and that we'll talk about more going forward, it is a real solution provider in this area. So we're going to talk a little bit more later about some of the specifics, but for now, I'll hand back over to Hassan and Olav to take you through some more of the technical details and some case studies.
Thanks, Lewis. And before we start talking about the different LiFi application, I'd like to highlight here an incident happened in the Netherlands a few years ago. And it was the main reason for the Netherlands to start prohibiting Wi-Fi in all security sensitive areas and switch to more secure solutions like the Wi-Fi. And this is one of the famous cyber attacks to a government or a military entity through the Wi-Fi network, and it led to a diplomatic dilemma within the Netherlands at that time. And it started when there was an espionage attempt to hack into the Wi-Fi network of the OBCW. And the OBCW is the organization responsible for the prohibition of chemical weapons. It's an intergovernmental organization and the implementing body for the Chemical Weapons Convention. The incidents start when a group of agents rented a Citroen C3 car and they parked it in the nearby Marriott Hotel, which is 100 meters away from the OBCW office. And in the rear of these cars, they had set up all high-grade, high-value equipment to hack into the Wi-Fi channels. And of course, you can imagine had a main element in the antenna. They hide it under a waterproof jacket, and it was aimed towards the OBCW office to access the Wi-Fi network, intercept login details, and sniff all data traffic. Luckily, the group was being monitored by the Dutch intelligence services and have been arrested, and the Dutch government even at that time communicated about the incidents above the line in a press release. And since that time, there is a primary trend in the Netherlands to prohibit Wi-Fi in all secure, sensitive environments, like Ministry of Defense, military buildings, government buildings, and to start looking into a LiFi as a more secure wireless communication. And simply the reason, next slide, Olav, because there is no threat if hackers can connect. And here we are talking mainly about the physical security aspect of the LiFi. As we discussed in the beginning, you need to be physically inside the area, inside the location, having the right access key, having the right encryption to get access into the LiFi network. So on the physical layer, it's a very secure wireless communication. And if we look to the application or the areas where LiFi can be implemented and can add the value, first, we start by creating a secure spaces. And here we mainly target government and the military building. In most cases, we don't have the Wi-Fi, LiFi discussion because those customers need to reduce the RF footprint as much as they could. They need to highly protect all kinds of classified information, and they already use the so-called LBI, LBD systems, or the low probability of interception, low probability of detection means of communication. And LiFi is a great solution because of the line of sight, the incorporated encryption. So it's a great ingredient for this environment as it can't be intercepted or nor jammed from outside the secure space. And the famous application here, what is called the SCIF, or Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. And this is the area where stringent security measures are applied, not only for data communication, but also for access control, intrusion detection, acoustic protection, and so many other measures. And of course, radio-based wireless communication is completely prohibited. So in that sense, SCIF can be either a small meeting room up to complete floors and buildings, and it can be fully or partially equipped with the LiFi to provide a very secure wireless communication. Yeah, this slide is more comprehensive about different application or use cases within defense and military. And on the left-hand side, first one is about command and control post. And command and control post, this is the central hub for incoming and outgoing telecommunication between different military departments and units. It's also used in other applications like the government crisis management centers, or in the oil and gas facilities, or in the big multinational industrial organization as well. And the main benefit of the command and control center is bringing together multiple disciplines, especially during emergency operation, when security is crucial and any data leakage can be fatal. And LiFi provides the highest security level needed for data communication within this sensitive location, either when the command and control post is stationary within a building in a military base, or even when the command and control center are mobile and installed in the field operation. And this takes us to the second application, which is the mobile command and control post or compound, and in which tents and shipping containers are used to create some mobile command and control center in the field operation. And the problem here that when you go on a mission, you need to pull out a lot of cables, and this costs a lot of time and has a lot of constraints as well. Also, to make the containers tamper-proof or RF shielded, this is a very costly and tedious process. And LiFi can provide a more secure, cheaper, and easier to implement wireless data communication, especially if we have the LiFi installed in the lighting fixture. So the moment you install illumination, you have LiFi as well on top of it. The next application is the ammunition bunker. And this is a place where ammunition and weapons are stored and being assembled to make them operational. And no radio is allowed inside the bunker and at the surrounding of this bunker as well, to avoid risk of explosion, because RF interference might cause that. But they still would like to be connected wirelessly. And the reason that the management of these ammunition is a very heavy task, time consuming, and right now it's a manual process. And given the fact that LiFi works with light, so no interference could happen, it can be installed safely within the ammunition shelter. And as a result of that, the defense personnel can connect his tablet to the LiFi network, which is installed inside the shelter, and allow them to get access to online manuals or ask for remote support effectively and securely as well. That way, maintenance can be automated, inventory as well can be automated instead of the manual counting, and LiFi helps to save time, efforts, and increase productivity. Then the next application is about fast data offload. And here we talk about communication between defensive vehicles when they are in the field on a mission. And the problem here that radio sometimes is not available, or they need to operate in non-RF environment or work under MCON condition or emission control. This is the radio silence condition, because data can be intercepted or simply the enemy might be listening. So no emission or radiation from any device or from any sensor is permitted or allowed. And we can provide an alternative transmission layer by means of light to allow communication either between the vehicle or to transmit data from the vehicle to the military base. And we use a light here to offload operational data that can be used for fleet management purposes, or data that can be gathered in the field for intelligence purposes like audio and video footage. So in that sense, we create a very secure wireless communication between the different vehicle and between the different devices in the field of operation. One of the real cases here, which we implemented in Netherlands, and this is a prototype that we are currently working on, and we have already deployed with the Dutch Ministry of Defense with the Air Forces. And here, this is for a point-to-point outdoor communication. And the problem the customer had at that time, that in case of humanitarian or overseas mission, when there is a disaster and the defense need to get on the ground on the spot, they need to start communication immediately. And in such case, if cables need to be rolled out, this is a very cumbersome, time-consuming, and require kilometers of cables to go around the runway or the helicopter landing pads. Also, if RF needed to be set up, it takes a lot of time to get regulations and to get back to the hosting country, for instance, to get some license for the spectrum. And with the LiFi point-to-point communication, we were able to initiate a data network at a 150-meter distance in just 10 minutes. So it's very easy and simple to set up, and we could reach speed up to 50 megabits per second at that long distance. So in that sense, it's very secure, reliable, and easy to implement on the field as well. Yeah, here we cover more abroad, let's say, use cases for the LiFi, not only in government buildings, but also can target the office spaces as well, like the multinational buildings or the co-working spaces. And here we can mainly create either a secure room or a LiFi hotspot. In secure room, we can easily transform some ordinary rooms into a secure rooms. And you see that the Wi-Fi at the background as a general connectivity platform. And on top, we can create some secure areas where sensitive information is shared or high level of negotiation take place. And as I mentioned, these work not only for government, but also for banks, multi-tenant buildings, and co-working spaces. You can think of creating this secure vault for the board and top management area, or for the meeting rooms where sensitive negotiation with the suppliers or with the partners are taking place, or for some departments like the merger and acquisition and the R&D laboratories, to protect all the sensitive and valuable information for the organization. The second application is the LiFi hotspot. And here we can create pocket of excellence where it's 100% guaranteed to get reliable and fast communication, regardless what's happening at the background, what's happening with the Wi-Fi at the background. LiFi provides a very stable and fast wireless communication, despite how many users need to be connected simultaneously to the network, how the congestion is, what is the size of data is being shared. So in that sense, we can create some areas within the office space, which is 100% guaranteed to get reliable and fast communication. To make it even easier, we have prepared a Trulifi starter kit. So it's very easy to implement either a secure room or a LiFi hotspot with these starter kit. It's just one box, contains all the components, all the cables, the instruction to install it in a very easy and quick way. It's a plug and play system which can be integrated on the spot into your network, and it doesn't need any special installer or a special configuration. And it can be done at a very affordable price point as well. Yeah, these one of the main areas have for us to implement a secure meeting rooms with one of our customers in the Netherlands, the World Forum in The Hague. And the World Forum is the leader in hosting high-profile conference. So it's a convention center, and it hosts high-profile conferences like the Global Conference on the Cybersecurity Climate Adaptation Summit in 2021, and it also hosts a lot of international and national governmental bodies meeting. It hosts up to 3,000 guests in the conference center. And due to the high-profile events they host, they wanted to offer an extra layer of security to enable their guests to meet and work freely without any hesitation of data leakage or hacking or jamming the sensitive information. And for them, LiFi was a perfect solution to upgrade some of the meeting rooms to secure vault for these high-profile customers. And with Trulifi, World Forum right now can offer their high-level clients a broadband connection that is wireless, both reliable and also secure. Yeah, once again, I'd like to hand over to Lewis to discuss how we can implement LiFi in the region in the cooperation with such partners.
Thanks, Hassan. So I think Hassan's taken us through some great examples there of the utilization of LiFi in security and military environments. And I wanted to kind of focus on the Middle East applications for this and why specifically we believe that the time is now for this to be a real strong solution in the Middle East. And I'll start on the military side. And there's two elements to this. Firstly, there's the headquarters. You know, Hassan's already told us about a great example of where a secure government headquarters based in the middle of a city was nearly very easily hacked. And this is a massive risk in the Middle East. Most of the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of National Guard, any of the armed forces headquarters are based in town. If you're in the UAE, they're in the middle of Abu Dhabi. If you're in Saudi, they're in the middle of Riyadh. So these are buildings that are next door to hotels, that are next door to car parks, that are next door to any civilian area, which makes it physically impossible to completely eradicate the risk of hacking into secure Wi-Fi from outside of these compounds. So the great advantage that LiFi presents is that you have to be physically inside the compound. I don't know how many of you have seen these compounds, but physically getting into them is basically impossible. So the only risk that this presents is being able to hack in from the outside. And by having a LiFi, true LiFi solution, that risk is completely eradicated. Secondly, on a military perspective, from a deployment perspective, most of the military forces in the Middle East are what we called expeditionary forces. And what we mean by that is they tend to not be spending their time protecting their own borders, but helping others in the region. We've seen a lot of work of that in Yemen recently with both the UAE military forces and Saudi. Why that's important is because as they are expeditionary forces, they need to have solutions that are agile, that are flexible, that are portable in order to be effective. They need to be able to set up command posts quickly, remotely, and effectively wherever they go. They cannot afford to have to do a huge amount of back-end infrastructure wherever they go. And when we look at the solutions that Hassan was talking about, such as the containers, such as the bunkers, etc., True LiFi gives them that great capability. It is easy to install, it is quick to install. It gives them completely secure environments You know, whether it's for military bases themselves or for security forces, protecting oil and gas pipelines, protecting oil and gas facilities that, as we know, are often in the middle of nowhere. They need to have ability to maintain secure comms if they get attacked by insurgents. And having these containers that have internal LiFi applied to them is a pure security solution once you combine that with the ballistic protection that many of these containers have. So from a military perspective, both from a headquarters operational command and control centers perspective, LiFi is hugely beneficial, but also from a deployment and operational perspective, it has applications as well. And Hassan also talked about the point-to-point mobile comms that it gives us. Now looking on the security perspective, there are two major things that I think are important to look at when we look at security and the application of true LiFi. Firstly, it's something I mentioned earlier, which was about events and tourism. You will all see the ever-growing list of major global events that are happening in the Middle East. You know, whether it be Expo that will be happening this year as a delay, whether it be the sporting events that have already happened in Saudi Arabia, who will be getting their first Formula One this year, whether it be the large events where WDS, the World Defense Show, will have its first occurrence next year in Saudi Arabia. There will be a huge amount of events happening in the Middle East over the next 10 years. What this means is two things. One, it means that the existing communication infrastructure in those locations is going to be under serious pressure to deal with this massive insurge of people. So having LiFi solutions to help bolster that comms during those times will be essential. Secondly, the threat will go up substantially during these times, as it does everywhere around the world. And because the Middle East, UAE maybe aside, has not had to deal with these threats on such a scale before, there is a real need to introduce new ways to secure that communications. And Signify and True LiFi, we believe, have invented something that really achieves that. If we look at certain security events, such as the World Defense Show, such as IDEX, some of those communications between military dignitaries and local companies are of the utmost security. And having those conversations in a standard room with standard Wi-Fi is just dangerous. So being able to provide super secure solutions within events for sensitive meetings and discussions is an essential element, and is something that Signify and True LiFi can provide. The other side of security is when we look at things like the Giga projects in the mega cities, and we're looking at NEOM and Red Sea specifically in Saudi Arabia, as well as the smart cities that go alongside them. Not only will these locations be targeted for attacks and targeted threats because of the tourism elements of them and the mass populations, because of their focus on being smart, technologically enabled cities, the pressure on the technology infrastructure will be vast. And what is great about Signify is not only can it be utilized from a security perspective for command centers for these cities, it also is flexible and can be integrated into pretty much any back-end infrastructure. So whatever technological backbone these smart cities are using, and Daniel, I think, talked about the 60 billion number of devices by 2022. These cities will be hotspots for such devices because they are all going to be connected. So what Signify will provide with these cities is a great opportunity to have isolated areas for extra communications, for extra security, which is going to be incredibly essential for these areas. So they're just a couple of the examples that I think are pertinent specifically to the Middle East going forward. And I'll hand back to Hassan and Olav now to complete the presentation.
Thank you, Lewis. I think it's time for Q&A. We saw a couple of examples and use cases where we can apply LiFi. And yeah, maybe there are a couple of questions that we can handle. Daniel, maybe you can help us with this.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a couple of questions fire through already from the audience, but Yeah, I've got a number of questions that I'd like to cover, a number of kind of thought patterns that have emerged from hearing your presentations there. My first question really was for Olav probably, and I was just trying to get into the mindset of a communications manager, a network manager, security manager. In your opinion, what would be the key driver to adopting LiFi? If I was a military man or an operational person, what would be the key thing that pushed me to invest in LiFi in conjunction with Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I think I guess that would be security. You will have the option to really compartment spaces and really separate one communication structure from the other. With the LiFi, we provide an additional layer of physical security for the last mile of the wireless communication. And users must be in the line of sight, in the cone of light that is there in order to connect. You would still have to, of course, take care of the additional security measures like firewalls and so on. But it's obviously an extra layer of security that can be provided, and I think this specifically makes it very interesting to look at.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to pass it over to Hassan. So we were talking about how LiFi can make the organization more secure, or pockets of the organization more secure. But a risk-based kind of question there would be, will the level of risk to an organization be reduced if we invest in LiFi? Or will there still be the issues kind of posed by Wi-Fi and other sort of communications platforms as well being used in an organization? What's your opinion on that?
As Olav explained, this is mainly about the physical security. So yeah, on the contrary, LiFi is dealing with light, right? So you need to be physically in the line of sight with the light source to get access to the network. So in that sense, on the physical layer, this is a very secure communication. You need to be physically inside the area or inside the location where we install the LiFi to get access to the network. And even if we are talking about internal threats that might be, we might have some, let's say, leakage from the inside, we incorporated the encryption between the LiFi transmitter and the LiFi receiver. So even if we have within the same location someone trying to access the network and he doesn't have the right encryption or doesn't have the right key to get access to the network, this is not possible to happen. So on the physical security, we also added or incorporated the encryption between the transmitter and the receiver. So it's an extra layer of physical security on top of that. So in that sense, this is about the physical security of the LiFi communication compared to Wi-Fi. Because by the end of the day, if we are talking about Wi-Fi or radio-based communication, you can't control the signal, right? It transfers everywhere through all objects, travel outside of the room, outside of the building. And for these kind of application, the customer or the organization simply don't trust to have this valuable information in the air with the vulnerability that anybody can tap in. So they need to protect their assets in a very secure and very high protection way. And this is how LiFi can help them to achieve that target.
Okay, just to expand on that, Hassan, what is the kind of downtime like? Say if someone walks across the path of a light beam or anything like that, does that have any impact on the kind of performance of the LiFi?
Yeah, there must be a line of sight between the LiFi transmitter and receiver, and you can think of it as a security aspect as well. But by the end of the day, if we have any interruption between the two points, or if we have something covered, let's say the transceiver or the access key, for instance, yeah, the connection will drop. And once the line of sight is restored, the connection will be recovered automatically within seconds. So you can see it from both directions, that this is the security aspect of the LiFi, is that you need really to be physically in the line of sight with the LiFi component.
Okay. So Olav, kind of back to you here with this kind of question. So is it possible for any device, so laptops, PCs, mobiles, tablets, are they all potentially compatible with LiFi?
Yeah, if that's possible. If the device has a LiFi receiver installed, it can be connected to LiFi. At the moment, we work with a separate USB key because the integration into the devices has not happened yet, like you have with Wi-Fi. But we foresee that this will change rapidly in the near future, and then it will be applicable for more devices, also smaller ones.
Okay, excellent. I have a question here for Lewis. So the slides you showed there about the applications for the Middle East, potential opportunities, but why do you think that there is such growth potential in the Middle Eastern market in particular, or is this potentially a global solution?
I think it is a global solution, but if we talk specifically about the Middle East, like I said, from a security perspective, we're seeing a lot of these Middle East nations open up to the international community, especially Saudi Arabia, which has got a huge base. And I think with that comes threats, huge amount of threats of hacking. And when we look at the huge number of events that are going to happen, especially in Saudi Arabia over the next 10 years, and the tourism, and obviously all of the Middle East countries are trying to diversify their economy away from oil, and tourism is seen as a big area to focus on. With all of that coming on board, the threat assessment in the Middle East is going up on a daily basis. And yes, it's a physical threat, but a lot of it's not. A lot of it's from a communication perspective. So I think that's why I believe this solution is specifically apt to the Middle East right now, because I believe that the Middle East is about to go through a period of increased security threats across the networks and across the sectors.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question coming from the audience, and it's again kind of about interference. And the question here is around: does interference from sources like fluorescent lights, will that have an impact on the performance of LiFi? And Hassan, I think you might be best positioned to answer this one.
The answer is simply no, because we have filters over our component for the transmitter and the receiver to bypass any wavelength rather than the ones we use for our LiFi communication. So as Olav mentioned in the beginning, we use infrared, and to be more specific, we use a certain wavelength, 840 nanometers for the uplink, 920 nanometers for the downlink. And we have filters to bypass any other wavelengths rather than those two, which we already use for the bidirectional communication. So we can have LiFi installed in any environment with fluorescent light or LED light, and we can easily have the communication up and running without any interference, without any problem. Even with the remote control, because some people is asking remote control, we are using infrared, but also we bypass that wavelength. So in that sense, we can't have this kind of interference for our component. Okay.
And then just finally, I hate kind of keep going back to the interference piece, but I think there's the applications you showed, there's both internal potential opportunities there in government institutions, but then the outdoor pieces, some of the images you showed in your slides about military applications, planes and things like that. So just to settle the audience's mind down, in outdoor field environments, does things like aircraft noise, clouds, thunderstorms, would that affect LiFi at all?
Yeah, LiFi is not affected by the aircraft engine noise. However, rain, fog, and dust may disturb the connection in outdoor situation, especially if we have the distance between the access point and the USB key, or between the two endpoints very far away. So as long as we have the distance increase, there is more impact for rain, fog, and dust.
Okay, excellent. And I think finally, I've got a question for Olav. If an organization wants to begin thinking about applications for this, can they seek kind of help from Signify or the guys working on the Trulifi for the applications? Because my eyes were drawn immediately to the kind of hotspots, the secure locations and things like that. Is that something you can help with in really building out a strategic protection plan or strategic use cases for this kind of technology?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a team here based in the Middle East, spread over various countries that can support. We have, of course, a central competence center where Hassan is working that help us, for example, with designs and other technical support. We work together with partners. Lewis here, of course, is a great example that have their specialism in the security industry. And yeah, as such, I think we have the right setup to support any request or initial test, perhaps, that people would like to implement. Hassan already showed earlier that there is also a starter kit. I think that's a very nice way of an easy entry into this technology. Okay,
perfect. Thank you. And just to kind of round this up, this presentation, I'd like to go to each of you, all three of you, just for maybe 20, 30 seconds, just a summary of some of the benefits, some of the use cases, just a kind of a leaving note for the audience. So we'll go in kind of reverse order as I can see on screen. So Lewis, what are your kind of closing remarks for this potential technology?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I think if I just focus on the Middle East defense and security, I think from a security perspective, the security market in the Middle East is going to continue to grow hugely because of all the reasons that I've already talked about. And secure comms is at the forefront of that. And I believe that this LiFi solution is definitely the answer, and that has huge numbers of applications and tailoring. And I think its ease of use and its flexibility are going to make it a really important solution going forward.
Excellent, thank you. And Hassan, any kind of parting points?
I think the main message we need to deliver today is that LiFi is a new way of wireless communication using the light, which is very secure wireless communication because of the line of sight and all the reasons we have discussed. It's very stable compared to any other RF-based communication, and it's very fast wireless data communication as well, which target different user cases and different applications. And mainly we are looking into the security sensitive areas where we can create some secure vault within the location or within the customer environment using the LiFi.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Olav, just a final point from you.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, to reiterate that if you would be interested to try this technology and test it, please feel free to contact any of us, and we will be very happy to help you with that and set up a test.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much, all three of you, for your presentation today. I think some of these points are very pertinent. If we look at the way the world is digitizing, and especially some of the use cases that Lewis and Hassan took us through, there's going to be an explosion of technology throughout the Middle East, from smart cities, IoT, 5G, and all of that could potentially be underpinned by this secure infrastructure provided by LiFi. So once again, thank you so much for your presentation, and anyone who is listening, thank you for joining, and please do reach out to the panelists directly, and feel free to explore their website too. But thank you once again from Security Middle East magazine, and we hope to see you all very, very soon. Thank you.